Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. A third consecutive electoral defeat for India's opposition can jeopardize the existence of many regional parties with a national footprint. Now, the 4th of June will decide the future of many of these political parties. So the question we're asking today is, what is the future of parties with a family name? Are they going to stay here? Are they going to stay relevant? Are these families fighting for their survival? Will they stay in the game? And to discuss more on this, I'm joined by senior journalist KV Prasad and my colleague Brijesh Pandey here at the News9 Plus studio. Gentlemen, welcome to the News9 Plus show. I want to start by asking you this, Brijesh. The BJP pitched the 2024 Lok Sabha elections as family first versus nation first. How has this played out if you look at the numbers that are coming in from the exit polls?
This question suits BJP narrative because, and it's also divided in North and South.
Yeah.
Because if you look at North, the BJP is the dominant party, right from one end to another.
Right.
This narrative suits because, it's Samajwadi Party is not going to do that well in Uttar Pradesh.
Yes.
RJD is not going to do that well in Bihar.
Right.
So BJP is the dominant party, and there they can say that, it's nation first because,
Yes.
people are voting for us and all. Down south, it's a completely different story. DMK is the dominant party, and the BJP there is struggling to make itself relevant in states other than Karnataka, which has traditionally voted for them.
Right.
And you have to also understand that power is divided into two layers. There are two layers to the power which politicians and especially the regional parties enjoy.
Right.
First is the Lok Sabha election, where BJP seems to be the dominant party.
Right.
But given the change in circumstances and all, the assembly election, which for most of the regional parties are the real the power prison.
Yes.
There the family first parties have a decisive edge.
Right.
I mean, right now in Bihar, people say that, BJP or the BJP-led NDA might win, 29 to 32 seats.
Right.
But when you talk about a regional election, which is assembly election, majority of those people are voting for the BJP say that Tejasvi has emerged as the tallest leader
Yes.
in the entire state of Bihar. So
Right.
the equation completely changes. So I wouldn't say that, what Prime Minister or the BJP is trying to say that it is nation first or family first.
Right.
But yes, in the north of India, in the North Indian states,
Yes.
the family first parties may suffer a setback, but this is not the case in South.
This is, you believe, KV Prasad, you believe there's a family first divide in the North and South, as Brijesh is saying, that the family parties aren't doing too well in the North, where the BJP is at the strongest. But in the South, where the BJP is comparatively weak, relatively weak, the family parties rule the roast.
Well, interestingly, Sandeep, one party in the south where the BJP has aligned is another party which also could be characterized as a family party.
Right.
Chandrababu Naidu and
The TDP, yes.
Yes.
Right.
And on the flip side, the other family party again is the YSR Congress of
Yes.
YS Rashtriya Reddy's son, Jagan. So it does exist, that kind of a dichotomy or
Yes.
that kind of a divergence do exist in South. Of course, in terms of what you refer to as we are basing our calculations on the basis of the exit poll results.
Yes,
On
yes,
the eve of
absolutely.
tomorrow when
Yeah.
the results will be come. So if we move on that premise,
Right.
on the face of it, it looks. But
Right.
then the family parties, if you move to another place in North, very close to Delhi is Haryana,
Yes.
where the Janit party of Bhajan Lal's son, Kuldeep Bishnoi, went to the BJP. He was the Congress, came to the BJP, and
Yes.
look where is it today. I mean, both the father and son were barely out there in the electoral calculations of BJP.
Right. Right.
So it works differently in different places, but if you just, these are stray examples, I can just let you out.
Yes, yes. Prasad, we'll come back to this, the North, but we'll first look at it, Brijesh, at the 4 regions. We've broken down the country into 4 regions, looking at the political parties and their futures, based, of course, on what the exit polls have forecast. Now, in the center, we have the grand old party, the Congress, 4th generation leadership, possibly looking at a 3rd consecutive defeat. Where does that leave the Congress, Brijesh, if the polls
I think
are
if
right?
the poll numbers are correct,
Yes.
and if the figures are going to stand tomorrow when the results are out,
Right.
I think the Congress will face one another out of disintegration.
Right.
There are going to be mass desertion from the Congress party. We
Right.
saw, 1 or 2 people leaving in droves and
Yes,
all already in the
yes.
Congress party. I think there'll be a serious question mark on the leadership ability of Rahul Gandhi, because you can explain one defeat or 2
Yes.
defeat max, saying that there's a wave which is going on in favor and all.
Right.
But I think the question will come that whether Rahul Gandhi has it in himself to lead the party from front, or whether he should relinquish the throne for somebody else.
Of course.
Chances of relinquishing the throne for somebody else is next to nil. So I think the Congress will keep on hitting these figures till either the party disintegrates or reality dawns on them and they allow somebody else to become or to run the party.
Right. But, in a sense, Brijesh, they already did that when Rahul Gandhi kind of stepped back and allowed the Mallikarjun Kharge to take over
Sandeep,
as president.
That was a cosmetic change.
Right.
I mean, that was a cosmetic change.
Family retainer.
It's a family retainer. It's the face.
Right.
Like, when we see in many of the ghotalas which we, encounter, the driver has a property worth 250 crore rupees.
Yes.
But that his real asset would be not worth more than 50,000
Or in this
rupees.
case, citing more recent cases, KV Prasad, where the driver takes responsibility for crashing the family car.
Exactly.
When the scion has been
in
at the
his reality,
wheel.
he wouldn't be even driving a cycle.
That's correct. So would you see a possibility like that emerging for the Congress? Tomorrow when the results are out, we'll know once and for all, as Brijesh was saying, where that leaves the Congress. But if the numbers aren't, very encouraging, it's still in double digits, where will the Congress be after tomorrow? Will it be a disintegration, further leaders moving away, or maybe the Sharad Pawar formula where a whole lot of other parties could come together with the Congress and consolidate? Which of these two scenarios do you think is going to play out?
When we're talking of possibilities, politics, anything is possible. Let's start with that. Politics is possible, right? That's what we all say. Having said that, the fact is today the Congress has been in a state of drift for the last 2 years before elections.
Right.
After Rahul Gandhi stepped out, there was an interim arrangement which remained interim for a pretty long time till Kharge ji found its place. Of course, as Brijesh puts it, he was selected to do the job by the Congress.
Right.
Rahul Gandhi and the family, right? That being the case. But yes, we must see that 2 elections held under Kharge's leadership.
Right.
Himachal and Telangana, they got results. They didn't get results in Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. Is also a fact. So there are 3-2 if you break it into time of a series of cricket matches, right? So Congress has lost 3, won 2.
Right.
That being under Kharge's leadership. Now this was a big test. Whether we like it or not, Kharge remains the Congress president whether on paper or not, he is the Indian National Congress president, number one. The family has a stake. Ironically, 20 years ago, or later on 1998 rather, when Mrs. Gandhi took over, Sonia Gandhi took over, the whole idea was to step the disintegration of the party.
Right.
Because post-Mara period, when they went into an opposition mold, Sitaram Kesari, the party had just withered away.
Yes, you had a whole lot of new congresses emerging, Tamil Manila Congress and the Congress T.
Everybody had gone away, almost everybody. And then we had a great Karnakaran plan, which brought back many of those back to the Congress fold.
Right.
So maybe Sharad Pawar is looking at something like that.
Right.
But let us wait also for the results, because even if the Congress is in double digits, it is not going away. That's
Absolutely.
I think double digit is also like which double digit is like if they go up to 90 or
90
go up to 95,
or 99.
it's still a double digit. But 95 means that the BJP and the NDA will see a sharp decline.
Yes.
We'll see a
Absolutely.
sharp
Started
decline.
44 when they were in 2014.
Right.
Or 54 when they were in 2019. Those were 2 double digits. That was the least.
So lower double digits or higher double digits? That we'll know, of course, in a few hours from now. But looking at the other 2 interesting parties in the north, Brijesh, the Akali Dal, the Badals. What happens to the Badals? They're in a quadrilateral contest. Literally every party in the fray is fighting those elections. What will happen to the Badals?
I think, of all the regional parties, Badals are in the biggest soup.
Right.
Because, they are not a regional party. They're not that powerful regional party anymore. Aam Aadmi Party has replaced them.
Yes.
Congress is there fighting its level best. And when it comes to Lok Sabha election, last time we saw, how Congress has got the maximum number of member of parliaments.
Right.
They are neither. They were forced to desert or ditch NDA because of the kind of the sentiments farmer protest was generating. And now the farmers said that we know that the reason why you ditched NDA because at the fag end of the of their entire 5 years.
Yes.
So they are in a classic fixed situation.
Right.
And I think they'll have to literally reinvent themselves to
Right.
be a power to reckon with as far as
Yeah.
Punjab is concerned. I think of all the regional parties we're talking
Right.
about, it is Shiromani Akali Dal, which is
Right.
in a royal fix. But they are not because of what the Prime Minister or the BJP says. They are because of their own, internal inherent contradictions which are staring at them.
Absolutely.
They should have switched. They should have ditched NDA at
Right.
least a year before.
Right.
If they would have wanted
To capitalize
and stay relevant
Right.
in the politics of
Right, absolutely. KV Prasad, the Abdullahs, the National Conference in Jammu and Kashmir, where do you see them after 2024?
I think whether it is the PDP's Mehbooba Mufti or National Conference of Abdullahs, the fact is they are preparing themselves for the next round of assembly elections, because as
Right.
even today the election commissioner did hint that
Yes.
it's going to be any time now, right? So
Right.
So obviously this is a testing of waters. They kind of get to know. So
Right.
I don't see them going anywhere till the assembly election. And I'd like to add one more party. There
Yes.
are two parties to the list. Brijesh Pandey of the north. It's neighboring Haryana.
Yes.
The Indian National Lok Dal and the
JJP.
Dynasts party.
Yes.
JJP.
Both from the same family of the I.N.D. fold. JJP, Jan Janta Party.
Yeah.
Right? Both from the Chotala fold, and both at loggerheads. They fell out of the. One of them was with JJP, was with
Right.
BJP.
Right.
They came out.
Right.
So these are questions that will be continue to be faced.
Yes.
Because post-election, again, remember Haryana has elections in October, not
Just
4
down,
months
yeah,
down the line,
towards
right?
the end of this year. Absolutely.
Just around the corner.
But,
October is Maharashtra, and then we go on to.
Yes. Brijesh, so you
Haryana.
mentioned Bihar, Tejaswi is in a strong position, especially with the
absolutely.
assembly elections coming up
Absolutely.
next year. What about the Mulayam Singh Yadav family, Akhilesh Yadav?
See, Akhilesh is also doing very well.
Right.
Akhilesh is also doing very well, and if we go by the exit poll figure, and if he's able to get win 11 Lok Sabha seat,
Right.
that makes him a formidable regional Satatra.
Yes.
And the fact is this, as KV was mentioning also, that Abdullahs are not going anywhere because they are waiting
Right.
for the turn as far
Assembly
as
elections, absolutely.
And you can actually write off regional parties when they start faring badly in the
Right.
assembly election, not
Right.
in the national election.
Right.
So I think right now Samajwadi Party has, if they win 11 seats or 10 seats,
Yes.
that makes them a formidable player as far
Right.
as Uttar Pradesh is concerned. They already have 115 plus MLAs in the current Vidhan Sabha,
Yes.
and them winning 10 or 11 or 12 will make them a very, very formidable player
Right.
as far as UP is concerned.
So now moving to Western India, where you have Maharashtra, two dynastic parties there.
I think Maharashtra
Pawar
is
and
one party
Thackeray's.
where everybody will be looking very closely
Right.
to. The reason is, I think that, there may be smaller parties and all, but I think the real litmus test
Yes.
2024 is going to bring to
Right.
would be the state of Maharashtra.
Right.
I mean, you can say minor parties and all, but the point is that, this election will decide once for all who is the real NCP and who is the real Shiv Sena.
Right,
If
absolutely.
Uddhav Thackeray wins 14 seats,
Yes.
he will romp back home with a massive vindication of that he is the real
And he's
Shiv
been
Sena.
betrayed.
And all the desertion,
Yes.
you will see them coming to a screeching halt, and
Right.
the reverse migration happening for the only reason is
Right.
the elections are also down the corner
Absolutely.
at the end of
Just-
the year.
just
So,
a few
people will
months away.
realize that, that leaders will realize,
Right.
or leaders who are deserted will realize that this is the party
Yes.
Maharashtrians have chosen their faith to oppose to. And
Absolutely.
this is going to
Yes.
work wonderfully for Sharad Pawar as well as Uddhav Thackeray.
Right. And KV Prasad, in the South, the Dynasts of the South, they're very, as Brijesh pointed out, they're very powerful, well-entrenched dynastic parties there. You have the DMK, Stalin, and you have the YSRCP, you have the BRS, the Bharat Rashtra Samiti. How are they going to fare, tomorrow, based on what the exit polls have told you? The BRS is in great trouble. I mean, it looks like it's
I think one party,
in
I'll just
survival.
take 1 second. One party I would like to add Shiromani Akali Dal
Yes.
along with is the BRS.
Is the BRS,
They are
right.
also staring at an existential crisis
Right.
now as we speak.
Which of the parties, KV Prasad, do you think, in the South, literally is facing an existential crisis in 2024?
Well, I think it's no longer a party held in the family. I'll add the list to the AIDMK.
Right.
Because AIDMK is really fighting a battle to try and
Right.
regain some ground.
Absolutely.
which
But
Telangana-
that's a unique party, KV Prasad. That's
It's a
no
unique-
family.
I say
There's
it's
no
no longer a
leader,
family
there's no
party.
family, there's no nothing.
Yeah, I say it's no longer a family party, but it was a monolith party for
Yes.
a long time.
Yes.
So that's the formation is different. Right now, if you come to BRS,
Yes.
BRS is certainly facing a lot of crisis. After 10 years in government, they're out in wilderness. But if you look at what happened in Telangana elections,
Yes.
the BRS leadership gave up. They went out and contested and put
Right.
the best foot forward. It may
Yes.
not turn into any other seats, or they may be at best, I don't
Yes.
know what can throw up tomorrow. So they're not giving up the fight. You see, that is an important component, even though Telangana assembly elections will be 4
Yes.
years away. But that is where, because if you look at Chandrasekhar Rao's graph,
Yes.
I mean, I've watched him since he was in TDP, then he was in Congress, TDP,
Right.
and so on. His graph. The man remains so committed to his cause. If you
Yes.
look at the way he actually went around the constitution of TRS, he fought with Chandrababu Naidu, came out, floated
Yes.
the Telangana Rashtra Samiti, and single-mindedly pursued it till he got it.
Yes.
So don't underestimate his determination.
Right.
I mean, I've known him very closely. I've watched his political graph. So that's why I'm saying, while we may say they may not get seats, they may
Yes.
not have representation in the assemblies or in the Lok Sabha, they will still remain a regional force which will continue to
They'll still
try and
remain a
capture
regional
and-
force. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our
Absolutely.
discussion today. But thank you very much for joining us, Brijesh and KV Prasad. We'll know in a few hours from now
Thank you.
whether 2024 is going to be the end of Dynasts. But as Brijesh and Prasad just told us, that it's too early to pronounce epitaphs, especially in politics. OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, said it disrupted a covert influence campaign in the 2024 Lok Sabha elections in India. It said that the campaign, originating in Israel, used models to generate pro-Congress and anti-BJP content. Let's first listen into what Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Minister of State for Electronics and Information Technology, told me about it. Do you believe that AI was used to target voters in these elections?
I think it is clear, and there is now evidence spilling out, unfortunately, belatedly post the election, which is a certain degree of irresponsibility on part of these platforms, which needs to be, again, that is a separate issue that needs to be gotten to and discussed, that many political parties in India, or at least some political parties in India, have invested heavily in a strategy that depended on misinformation and therefore deep fakes and AI in the cyberspace to push their political agenda. And the recent revelations by Meta, the recent revelations by OpenAI, that there is the Congress party had, in a sense, heavily invested in using YouTube influencers to push a fake narrative, and that OpenAI, platforms like OpenAI, were being exploited to push deep fakes and misinformation, and then Meta's confirmation that many bots were being used is certainly disturbing, because it points to overseas interests working perhaps with certain political parties in India and political interests in India, trying to subvert our democracy, which is a extremely dangerous and certainly something that cannot be left unchallenged. And we are the largest democracy in the world. We have almost 66 crore, 670 million Indians who went to polls. And to see that there are these types of technologies at work at a time when 89 crore Indians are connected on the internet, we are the largest country that is a connected country, is certainly disturbing. It is something that we had flagged many months ago. Our Honorable Prime Minister, in the early part of this year, in January, had pointed to the risks of misuse of deepfakes and misuse of AI. And I think the Congress party has proved that these fears were not unfounded. And it is an important issue for all of us to be worried about, as journalists, as public servants, as normal citizens who are engaged politically with their public representatives, that this is a very, very disturbing phenomenon. And it needs to be addressed and addressed decisively.
OpenAI's statement mentions this Zero Zeno and this Stoic, the political campaign management firm in Israel that's behind this. Have you ordered an inquiry into this to see
look,
how
I have said, look, it is for the next government to decide this and what will happen. And I certainly don't want to second guess that. But certainly, I as the incumbent minister, I have said today that this poses a huge risk to our democracy, and it is something that cannot be left unaddressed, unscrutinized and uninvestigated, which implies
Right.
that it must be investigated, scrutinized and understood.
Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, they're not fully convinced by AI and Meta's version of events. And I'm joined to discuss this by Sanjay Dixit, who joins us from Jaipur. He runs the Jaipur Dialogues, and my colleague Deepak Badana. Mr. Dixit, welcome to the News9 Plus show. You heard what Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar just mentioned, the fact that there were foreign interests at play here trying to influence the outcome of these elections. Did you personally experience any of this on your platform, which runs on YouTube?
Definitely at the receiving end of this, because we suddenly found, I think this was the last week of April.
Right.
When we suddenly found our views collapsing because we had not done anything out of the ordinary.
Right.
And we were actually quite flummoxed by it. And we went deep into it. We found that there was something which was very strange, because in YouTube,
right.
You also run YouTube, you can go to the analysis part of it.
Yes.
And when you go to the analysis part of it, there is something called reach. Okay.
Right.
So I'll just open this reach part, and in the reach part, what you find that there is something called suggested videos. Okay. So normally, what used to happen was that we used to get about 10%, 11% was our normal percentage of suggested videos.
Right.
And when this started happening, then sometimes there's a dip. And we inquired from the YouTube, and they said that it's a seasonal dip, which was rather strange because this was the time of election, and we were talking about elections most times.
Yes.
And when we are talking about elections, which is a very high, what should I say, a very high audience-generating activity.
Yes.
At that time, a dip was not expected. Okay, so we thought initially, IPL is going on, so some audience gets diverted to IPL because we also have a very young audience mix.
Right.
But then when it persisted, when we went and started looking into our analytics, and we suddenly found that the suggested videos had completely dropped. 0.4%, 0.5%, something like that. And then we complained about it to YouTube. And then they again said, no, what has happened is because your per impression clicks have improved.
Right.
That's why this has gone down or something has happened. But we did sense something fishy. And then, when we did an experiment, and that was very interesting because we thought that, if they are using an algo, because there was a lot of our kind of YouTubers were experiencing this, the neutral YouTubers. So the neutral YouTubers were experiencing this, and we were talking to each other. Then I did an experiment. I said, if there is some kind of an AI algo has been done, then we started putting negative titles.
Right.
Okay. Modi not crossing 400, or Modi not winning the election, or something like that.
Right.
And lo and behold, those titles started doing well.
Okay.
So that was very interesting. And now, as soon as the elections were over, there was again normal kind of activity. So this whole suspicion, it was only a suspicion. But now I have what is called circumstantial confirmation.
Circumstantial evidence to suggest that,
it's only deeper investigation that bring it out. Otherwise, it is still in the realm of a speculation.
Right. It's, but quickly, Mr. Dixit, one more question before I ask Deepak this. But what the minister suggests is that, apart from what you've experienced, the algorithms that have kind of, manipulating the kind of traffic that comes to your YouTube channel, what does this suggest? That, there are actually external actors. He's been very specific in talking about foreign governments, possibly corporations, possibly both, who are trying to influence what Indians consume, the kind of news that they see, especially when it comes to their platforms. This is not the first time that we've seen this happen, but I think it's the first time that we've got some kind of evidence to proceed on this. Do you think that this is going to be a trend increasingly, as you have a government that does not necessarily agree with the views of, say, certain Western countries?
I can say for myself, because I have been exposing Christophe Jaffrelot a lot.
Yes.
Christophe Jaffrelot, he is the anti-India head of all operations.
Right.
Globally. In fact, whatever you hear coming out of the Soros gang or out of US, it's all first incubated at Singapore, at Jaffrelot's lab. And these people actually, they had a conference in Stuttgart, I think about 2 weeks back, where they specifically discussed the Jaipur dialogue and said that, okay, these kind of Hindutva channel, Hindutva spelled with a double O.
Yeah.
So these Hindutva channels are very dangerous. I, in fact, put it out on a tweet on Twitter. And people were very interested in what's happening. And this gentleman, Christophe Jaffrelot, who indulges in all kind of anti-India propaganda, is also very close to the Gandhi family.
Right.
In fact, this entire narrative about caste, the caste divisions, the caste census, it's classic Jaffrelot. If you read Jaffrelot's writings, you'll know exactly where this is coming from.
Right.
And because we particularly have been exposing Jaffrelot and his gang, it is quite possible that we are on the radar.
Right, absolutely. And, I'm going to bring in my colleague Deepak Badana here on this. Deepak, our platforms, our rules, is that how you look at it? Where you're looking at conglomerates today in the multiple trillions, their valuations are in multiple trillions. Whether it's Google, it's AI, ChatGPT, Meta, all of these platforms, they've got all their own platforms, they've got their own algorithms, as Mr. Dixit was mentioning. Is this a thing of them setting the house rules for what others have to do, countries like us?
I think there is a clash coming. In the US, there have already been calls
There's a
to
backlash.
somehow regulate these platforms.
Right.
But insofar as, say, interference on part of, say, social media is concerned, I think that is to be expected. Before the social media game came up,
Right.
Back in the day, you had the CIA that would influence n number of elections in whatever parts of the globe. In India, when we look at this, I think one precedent is what happened in 2016.
16, that's right.
In the US. The Canadians have also, highlighted cases where they've alleged that the Chinese have tried to influence their elections.
Yes.
So I think it is to be expected. This is not something that even the platforms may be, responsible for. What we need to talk about is what can we, as a nation, as a society, do to, negate the risks that are associated with these platforms.
Right.
And that is a conversation I think is. It's a high time that such a conversation takes place in India.
Right, absolutely. And that's an interesting point there. Mr. Dixit, as what Deepak mentioned, is that what can you do to negate the risks of these platforms? Start your own platforms, as possibly what the Chinese have done many years ago.
But, what is happening is that when you talk about Google, you talk about Meta and others, you have to look at their investors. Who are their investors?
Right.
Their investors are those real big corporates who have their finger in every pie. Every big tech will have investments with them.
Yes.
I'm talking about the BlackRocks and I'm talking about the Vanguards and what is that, Smart Streets, and these 4 or 5 big corporates who own almost every stock, every important tech stock on the bourses, on the global bourses, especially in the US. They are the ones who control everything.
Right.
The reason they are not able to control X today is because they don't have any stakes there.
Right.
It's completely Elon Musk owned.
Yes.
And I think as Indian economy improves, and you've seen BlackRock is wanting to come to India.
Yes.
Similarly, others are wanting to come to India.
Right.
So the government of India must ensure that anybody who is wanting to come to India,
yes,
they have to play fair with us. Otherwise, we should give to them what they are trying to do with us.
Right, absolutely. Deepak, you think that's the way forward?
I think India definitely has, its own cards that we can play.
Right.
To begin with, Indians today make up, the vast majority of audience on, say, YouTube, Twitter.
Right. Absolutely. 80 crore people on the internet.
We make up the vast majority of netizens globally.
Right.
I think, the Indian government has a strong hand that it can play.
Right.
And that hand, and some would call it being a little too extreme, but we can force these corporations to, come to terms with us.
Right.
Or we remove our audience from their platforms.
Right.
And I don't think any single corporation in this world can afford that.
Right. You think, Mr. Dixit, this has been tried with China, right? Where we were the first countries, one of the first major countries to lock TikTok out. And this is what the Americans seem to have done about 4 years later. You think this is the way forward? More aggressive government, which takes a not so...
In fact, this has been hinted by the Prime Minister during the election hearing.
Right.
You've seen that he has flagged this issue. He knows that the Western interference is there.
Right.
And we have been flagging this issue at jeopardize for a very long time.
Yes.
And I think we were probably one of the few ones who ran a full program on how the deep state operates.
Yes.
And we are also aware of the schisms within the deep state, because Soros is also a part of the deep state, but he is now a fringe.
Right.
Right now, what Soros control is less than 10% of the deep state. And
Right.
90% part of the deep state is interested in India.
Yes.
They're looking at India as an opportunity.
Right.
So instead of doing hammer and tongs at people like Meta and all that, we should go straight to the corporates that control Meta and Google and such entities.
Right, absolutely. Go straight to the corporations that control Google and Meta and all these other entities that the government of India believes has been behind some of these manipulations of elections, and we have evidence of that for the first time. But thank you very much, Mr. Dixit, for joining us, and my colleague Deepak Vadana on this very important topic of, was there a foreign hand that disrupted or tried to disrupt India's 2024 elections? When Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay summited Mount Everest in 1953, the peak was a symbol of human achievement. Now today, Mount Everest symbolizes the worst of adventure capitalism. There's a human traffic jam on the way to the peak, and as they queue up to climb Mount Everest, they often step on human waste, plastics, and even bodies. Everest has become the world's highest garbage dump. I'm joined to discuss this evening by Wing Commander Amit Chaudhary and my colleague Nivriti Mohan. Welcome to the News9 Plus show. Wing Commander Chaudhary, absolutely heartbreaking visuals of what we've seen, what humanity has made of Mount Everest in just about 70 years. It took a few million years for Mount Everest to be created, and it took us just 70 years to mess it all up.
Yes, it's pretty tragic when you think about it, that today Mount Everest is such a treacherous mountain.
Right.
And people are climbing Mount Everest as tourists. And it's just become a kind of a social media fame mountain.
Right.
So, pretty bad, yes.
As you mentioned in the documentary that Nivriti put, that jumped out at me, that rush of people on the top of the mount and, everyone trying to get a selfie. I mean, I thought, Nivriti, this was one part of the world which would be immune to Instagram and selfies and social media and all that. But that's exactly what seems to have happened. Where was the turning point really? You've been researching this story for a couple of weeks. You wanted to climb Everest at one point. You told me that.
Yeah, that was a dream, but it is a distant dream now.
It's a distant dream because of all the garbage, or
because of the garbage, the crowd that I can see on
right.
the mountain.
No, but where was the turning point really? When did this mountain become what it is today? Was it in the last decade? Was it before that, or was it more? Is it a more recent phenomenon?
I think Wing Commander Chaudhary will be the best person to answer this. But
yes.
This has grown slowly.
Right.
As the government of Nepal started realizing that this is the source of some income to them.
Right.
And it is not some income, it is 10% of their GDP that the amount that they are earning from Everest.
From mountaineering.
Yeah,
yes.
from mountaineering. They have I was seeing a document of Ministry of Tourism of Nepal, and they were mentioning about the revenue that they collect from mountaineering.
Yes.
They had mentioned 30 mountains in the document, and out of those 30 mountains, 85% of the revenue, it was coming from Mount Everest alone.
Yes.
So this, considering the crowds that are inching towards, moving towards Everest, it has grown with time. Earlier, in 1953, when the Everest was climbed for the first time, or we talk about
even the 80s. Even in the 80s, it wasn't this bad.
Bachendri Pal and Marwa, when they went on Everest in 1984, she was telling me that there were only 2 teams.
Right.
And one team consisted of, I think, 20 members.
Yes.
And so 40 people in one season.
Right.
Now this time in 2024, as per the document that I saw on the social media of Nepal government, there were around 421 foreigners that were that were climbing Everest.
Over 400.
420 or more.
Right.
But this is not 420 or 20 climbers alone. You just need to add Sherpas to them.
Yes, right. There's a huge crush of people
At least
to
one
push
Sherpa
one person,
to one climber.
one to one, and so it's like literally tens of thousands of people there. And I've read reports of how each person, when they're camping there at base camp, leaves garbage like 8 kilo, generates 8 kgs of garbage every day.
Right.
Vikamara Chaudhary, how much is it going to get even more worse before it actually gets better? You see some light at the end of the tunnel in this case?
Well, the turning point, since you were asking earlier, was really in around 96 when there was a big accident, and there were a couple of books which were written.
Into Thin Air.
Into Thin Air, yes.
Yes.
John Proctor. And that actually caught the imagination of a lot of people, and then there was a huge rush towards the mountain.
Right.
But it's unlikely to get any better because there is a lot of economy, which is local economy, that is riding on it. And in fact, the government of Nepal has got several 8,000 meters to which expeditions go.
Yes.
And all these are commercial expeditions. At one time, mountaineering was an activity which had huge respect for nature.
Right.
And, but now what has it become? It's become commercialized and into a crowded space with fixed lines. And it's really up to the skills of the Sherpas, not the climbers themselves.
Right. Those Sherpas are basically those propulsion agents that literally push the climbers up the peak, and they, allow them to take those Instagram posts and those selfies. But Nivriti, this, as Wing Commander Chaudhary mentioned, that it's only going to get worse. Tell us about Mount Everest, a garbage dump, at a time of global warming, when you're looking at glaciers literally melting. And that's a point that you made in your story as well, where large parts of the glacier have started melting, and you're seeing the garbage from the previous expedition surfacing, including bodies. Tell us more about this.
So
Dead bodies on Mount Everest.
She is the fastest double summiter.
Yes.
And she is Padma Shri.
Right.
For this achievement, she got this recognition also. So she was telling me when she climbed Everest for the first time, that time also she did a double summit. So when she went up to Everest and when she was going through the Khumbu Glacier, she was saying that ladders were put way before than where they are placed now.
Yes.
So
which means the glacier was retreating.
Has melted. Glaciers had melted. So South Col is the highest camp on Everest, last camp from where you start towards the summit.
Yes.
So South Col is the worst affected area because it is the death zone above 8,000 meters.
Yes.
Where people, it is difficult for people to survive.
Right.
And what they do is whatever they carry, they just throw it
They just
there,
dump it there.
dump
And there
it
are
there.
no toilets even.
No toilets there.
No toilets in
And
the dead
no
zone.
microorganisms
No
that
microorganisms
can
to
destroy
break it up. Yes.
the human waste.
It's a very gloomy prognosis that you've painted, Nivriti. But Vinkamana Chaudhary, is there any bright spot whatsoever at Mount Everest in 2024? As you mentioned, I mean, you said it's only going to get worse. Is there something that possibly India can do? You know, given the fact that Nepal is a neighbor, it's a poor neighbor, is there something that India could do? The government of India perhaps could, help Nepal maintain this mountain, keep it eco-friendly, find a way of, disposing of this trash. Any such proposals that have gone out from India?
Well, we have had a huge relationship with the mountain, as
Yes.
Tenzing Indian was the first person to climb.
Right.
And even after that, we've had several expeditions to the mountain. We've in fact also had in our expeditions that we've sent,
Yes.
people go and clean up.
Right.
But when you talk about human waste, there's no microorganism, there's
Yes.
nothing which can do that over there. So what is done in other places, in other mountains, there's Mount Denali, for
Yeah.
example, or this is in Alaska, it's the highest
Yes.
mountain in the Americas. Over there, everybody has to carry their waste back, and there is a
Right.
method to do. There are very sustainable methods of climbing.
Yes.
And these are things which could be adopted. And of course, we've always been advising the government of Nepal, their tourism department, etc., whenever we meet them. Recently, we met them at the Indian Mountaineering Foundation a couple of months back. And we've been constantly advising
Yes.
them. Unfortunately, this is also driven by a lot of commercialization.
Yes.
And hopefully, they will take this advice. International advice also is coming
Yes.
to them from the
Absolutely. We
international-
live in hope. Thank you very much, Vinkamana Chaudhary. I'm sorry to have interrupted you there, but we're completely out of time. But thank you very much for joining us this evening. My colleague Nivriti Mohan's story on Everest Mount Garbage can be seen on the News9 Plus app very soon. It's a very grim prognosis for the world's tallest mountain. The fact that it's become a garbage dump, and there's very little that's being done to solve this problem.